this episode on My Cramped Garage. We're going to be continuing to do work on the exhaust, trying to figure out what angles line up with what, and also fixing the headers and adjusting that to make sure everything lines up the way that we want it to. So when we tried to figure out where we're going to place the turbo, we had to factor in a few things. The first is when the rider is on it, we want to make sure that there's an issue where your leg gets pretty hot when it's really close to the turbo, and we want to make sure that wasn't an issue when we're riding. The second one is making sure that the oil drain line has a nice path so that it can just go down there and we don't need any kind of sump tube or anything like that. And the other issue that I was worried about was weight distribution. I didn't want something sticking out so far that it was going to cause the bike to not be as balanced as it was. With this, I've noticed it actually hasn't been an issue at all. So I don't know if that would be a problem or not, if you brought it out more or what. And the other big thing you got to worry about is this going to foul on anything with your turbo? You'll notice that we did a straight shot right into the intake, and we were debating on doing an intercooler, but we just ended up doing it this way. Maybe in the future we'll add one, we're not sure. So as we continue this build, we're going to put in the description below, we're going to list where we got the parts from as best we can. Some of them were acquired by local shops that make tubing and stuff like that, but most of it was bought online, either from eBay, Amazon, what have you, in the following episodes. Hey guys, so going back to the turbo project, when we were trying to figure out where we're going to place this, we had a bunch of options. We could do it up high, we could do it down low, we could do it more centralized. We weren't really sure what direction we were going to take, and what really dictated it was the four things I mentioned, with the oil drain being adequate, the heat, the issue there. We wanted to make sure that everything worked out and there was no clearance issues with the turning radius. But yeah, Dale, when you first saw this project and I said, hey, let's do this, what were your thoughts on where this was going to be placed?
Well, my first thoughts were, well, let's make sure that we have even runs from this exhaust section to this exhaust section so that we have nice flow going into the turbo. But then when we got into it, and you sit on the bike, you realize that's not going to be possible. That's just not feasible. Your intake's going to be right here. If you were going to do equal length runs, it was going to end up in just a weird spot. And you got to make the thing usable. I mean, Brian's big concern with this intake piece was that his leg was going to hit on it, and that's why we ended up angling it the way we did, and that's why we did the positioning the way that we ended up doing. Well, obviously the reasons he listed, but also, you got to be able to ride the thing. So that was a big one.
Yeah, we were worried about heat soak happening on the intake when it's so close to that area. I mean, it's still pretty close, but I think that gets mitigated quite a bit now when it's spread out. And the reasoning, I don't know, Dale, what's the reasoning behind the equal length headers for that?
Well, we just from a power perspective, you want to try and generate equal force on the turbo from both sections. And then, I mean, people talk about scavenging effects on naturally aspirated engines, where one cylinder sucks the exhaust gas out of the next cylinder to fire and whatnot. And that's why they do equal length tube on headers into the collector. But for our application, I wanted to see the maximum amount of power made. And I think we achieved it though. So
yeah,
it's all good.
There's some things we could do to increase the power. We could change the way the stock muffler is. We could get rid of the catalytic converters, but I don't know, I didn't really want it to be all that stinky or anything like that. So yeah, follow us as we kind of talk through our build and for this episode. And thanks for watching. Hey guys, we are working now. You can see the headers have been joined into a nice gooch. We took some time, and that was a little bit of filling. So when you do those welds, make sure you really fill and grind the inside in, or else you're going to be sucking that through your turbo. Right now you can see I'm kind of trying to get squared away how I'm going to feed that turbo. You can see a little bend there. that we're using. And then you can also see the exhaust. We welded a little piece of pipe on there so we could tack weld later, just to make it easier, because trying to weld to cast piece, I mean, you've done it before.
Yeah.
I've done it before. You get cracks. And also, this is my favorite scene. This is the bluest shirt you'll ever see. So
Yeah, he wears it nicely.
yeah. So right here you're seeing our beloved S-bend that we, I don't know, I really like the idea of it. It really looked pretty cool, I thought, so I was trying to incorporate the angles and make it work out so we could still use the stock exhaust and feed it in there. So Dale just put a little slip collar on the stock exhaust because we're trying to get that S-pipe to work out. And we found that if we slip that on there, it gets nice and square with the existing exhaust, so we find a better mounting piece. You can kind of see we got some boards there to help us with the turbo because it's just awkward, you know, it's hard to do on your own. And before we weld it to the headers, we wanted to make sure that everything was nice and lined up and that everything looked good. And now you can see us kind of trying to fiddle with that and make sure we're good before we start tack welding and making it look nice. We're trying to figure out, you know, where is our leg going to sit on this? What's the clearance? How are we going to do this intake? How are we going to get it all mapped out? One of the big things I also wanted to do was try and retain some of that stock bolt look of the heat shields, because I think, you know, they did a good job and they look really, really good. So we're thinking of positions on where we're going to take the intake, and there's Dale's idea of, hey, let's do a bend coming right out of there and going right to the turbo. And we actually had to do a bend up when we mounted the turbo on the headers just because of the way the oil feed line had to go. So here you can see Dale's idea. He's kind of trying to explain to me, this is what I want to do, this is what I think would look cool, and we could bring it out this way. And the reason why we had to think of all these things all at the same time is once you get it welded up, it's tough to make changes on the fly. You kind of want to think ahead a few steps in order to figure out placement and stuff like that. So that's basically what's going through our head when we're trying to fab all this up.
I'm always 10 steps ahead.
Dale's always 10 steps ahead, and I'm usually 3 or 4 behind. Alright, so now we're kind of getting to that point where we can finally start tack welding. So you'll see me kind of half-assedly get that gooch hole cleaned out as best I can. I already took the Dremel to it to get all the schmutz out of there and any loose, crappy welds, trying to get that all cleaned up. The gooch was probably the most difficult piece to weld, just because it wasn't as clean as all the other welds. So here you see me kind of cleaning stuff up and positioning it. The nice thing is that tube actually sat right inside the gooch, so you could stick it in there and adjust your angles to figure that out. So here we are kind of fighting ourselves right now, trying to figure out what are we going to do here. And then Dale actually came up with an awesome solution there. And you know, Dale's great solution here was to wrap some tape around that piece. You can't see it because my sweet ass is in the way, but now you can kind of see the S-pipe is now starting to line up with the stock exhaust. It's still slipping around a little bit, so we might not have come to that conclusion, but we're still trying to get it nice and square and level and make everything look good before we tack weld. So yeah, now we're just Dale is trying to hold as still as possible, and we've all played this game where you're like, okay, everyone be still. Oh, there's the welder. Oh, that's in my way. Oh, I bumped it. And do a couple of quick tack welds here, and then we're in the home free pretty much.
Yeah, I have years of experience holding stuff for Dad, so
Yeah.
I'm an old pro. Close your eyes and don't move.
Yeah, you're the turn and look away instead of using the helmet. So yeah, you can kind of see our slip technique. We might not have come across the tape yet, but
We're getting there.
yeah, we're getting there. Yeah, a couple of things that I wanted to let you guys know if you ever take some exhaust pipe welding project on, you'll notice that when you weld something, tack welds are probably okay, but then when you take off the exhaust pipe and do a nice full beat of it, then and then try and put it back together, you'll notice that things kind of get out of whack sometimes. We got really lucky on a lot of this stuff. Like the headers itself, I think I tried squeezing those on and I barely got them to fit back on. But they were pretty square and they worked out really well. We haven't had any issues with sealing. But something you guys may want to double check when you weld, things do warp a little bit and they can cause a lot of headache and problem. Hey guys, now here's a perfect example of having to redo stuff. You'll kind of see we changed some stuff on the S-pipe in order to get it to line up better. We found that our angles weren't quite right, and this is why you tack weld everything when you're trying to fit it up before you do the final. Alrighty, well, we removed some of the heat covers there on the stock exhaust just to try and figure out some angles here with that S-pipe. Positioning, distance, and everything like that, tack welds, all that fun jazz in order to try and get the thing to line up properly. What we want to do is a straight shot right into the muffler, and as we come to find out, that's a little bit more tricky than what we at first realized. We got angles here, we got a couple of pieces, and you'll see us tack it up there a little bit. So here we're fitting in the pieces that we tacked together. There's a couple of issues. We weren't sure about everything. So here's where the tape comes in. And this actually was a genius idea. It really helped us try and square things up because there wasn't any reason to make an adapter or anything like that. We were going to cut that piece off and weld in a new section anyway. But we wanted everything to be nice and square. And this was pretty much the best way to do it without having to go to just make a bunch of custom stuff. So just, yeah, simple tape.
Just so you guys know, the exhaust is completely taped together. That's what holds it.
Yeah,
So
not with welds.
That's an insider trick.
Yep.
Just tape your exhaust together.
Tape it until it holds on nicely. The part we've all been waiting for. This is the final go of the S-pipe. This is where it's going to sit for the entirety of the project. There's still a little bit of exhaust work to do between the end of that S-pipe and where it attaches to the muffler, because we're going to take out the old stock O2 sensor and weld in a new bung and new wideband O2 sensor. So that'll be a couple of in the upcoming episodes. We'll be talking about that and the parts we used and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. See ya. Hey guys, I want to say thanks for all the comments and all the people watching and subscribers. If you guys have any questions about the build, we'll try and answer them as best we can in the videos coming up. We got a lot going on with, we got the exhaust kind of taken care of. We got a lot with the electronics and talking about the turbo some more, and then some of the tuning as well. So yeah, stay tuned and hit subscribe and keep watching and let us know what you think.